Hey guys, this is Eric at CollectorMania. Just want to go through our beginnings of our mono red deck techs for our mono red summit. Me and Kylie, Steve, and Greg are going to be playing single color red deck only in a big gameplay, so check that out. Check out the other deck techs, that sort of thing. As normal with anything on YouTube, if you like it, give them a comment, give them a subscription, whatever you feel like. If you like us, please do. That'd be great. We're always trying to grow. We're up at 94, I think.
Yep.
So we're growing. So we'll get right into it here. The commander to this deck is Ben Akki Hermit. This is my favorite deck. It is god-awful. It wins about a quarter of the time, but oh man, it's so much fun. So just going through him, he is a legendary Goblin Shaman for 2 red and 2. A 1/1, super resilient there. When he his tap ability says, Ben deals damage to target attacking creature equal to the number of untapped mountains you control. So this guy's full of some really good card effects. Clearly on the soon-to-be banned list. The first thing we'll go into here is the card package. He's pretty weak, as I mentioned, and yeah, if he gets killed or sacked or something, it goes downhill quick. So we'll go into just kind of the protection package here first, and kind of what he's good for. Of course, we're trying to keep ourselves safe. This is a pillow fort deck, so either selectively killing some of my opponent's stuff, or threatening that if they do swing at me or at other people, I can take stuff out. So the first part, you know, got some protection, or not protection here, but some threats. Basilisk Collar to give him Death Touch and Lifelink. Illusionist Bracers here to like get double effects, that sort of thing. Lightning Greaves to keep him safe. Mage Right Stone again to untap and maybe get multiple effects on the same combat effect if I can't kill with, let's say, like 4 untapped mountains. You know, tap him once to deal 4, untap him, then I'd have 3 untapped mountains, deal another 3, and maybe 7's enough to kill a creature, or maybe kill 2 smaller creatures, that sort of thing. Some redundancy, the Swiftfoot Boots to keep him double safe. One of my favorites is the Thornbite Staff here. It is one of those, I don't think it's got a keyword, but comes into play based off the Shaman type, and Ben's a Shaman. So when Ben comes in, he can auto-equip to this, and then he's not necessarily online, but he's got a new way to hit creatures. You can hit creatures that are not attacking just at any time. And the really great thing is he can untap if a creature dies. So the idea is if he is killing a creature that's attacking or just on his own, he'll tap to deal damage and then untap once that creature dies, and you can do it again. Really great way to get out of trouble. One other part of the pillow fort is Glacial Crevasses. We'll talk about that. 3 cost enchantment, 2 in a red. Pay 0, sacrifice a snow-covered mountain. No creatures deal damage this turn. So really great if you're in trouble. If you can't take stuff out with Ben or somebody does like a Crater Hoof, you can just shut them down with that. You can also play this more and more with Crucible Worlds later in the deck tech. So really great card. Rage Nimbus to make people block or attack with the stuff that they may not want to. Rings of Brighthearth, extra activations. 1000-Year Elixir to try to get like the haste on the activated ability, and then also the untap. And then Darksteel Forge kind of rounds things out there with just keeping the like protection and all my artifacts. There's a lot of artifacts safe. Moving on, we're going to go into Land Ramp. Some pretty good ones. Luckily in mono red we don't have to deal with it a whole bunch. Expedition Map just to get any land, which is super good. The Soul Ring, of course. Our Military Sphere is one of my favorites. Could probably be replaced with a Burnished Heart. I just love the card since it's from Conflux. But really good one just to keep some land in your hand. One of my favorites from Old Tempest, and I think the Commander 14 reprints, is the Ruby Medallion. If you play this in, I think, even a dual color deck, any of those medallions from Tempest to make things cost less is a really good idea. If you're playing dual colors, there's that Seal of the Guild Pact, which isn't too bad. A little bit more expensive, but man, getting this guy in an opening hand and playing Ben on turn 3 is just like, oh, so good. Moving forward, we've got Extra Planar Lens. In this deck, it runs Snow-Covered Mountains, so that helps just me. Most people don't run them, but if you run up against a mono red deck like we will this evening, that might not pan out so well. Another one, and kind of my baby in the deck, is Goblet of Might. Old one from Alpha, Beta, and Unlimited. All red creatures are +1/+1, and mountains tap for an extra red. So, really good normally, because not everybody plays red, but
That's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, a table with 4 red decks this evening might it might get wacky for everybody. So moving on, we have Solemn, of course, the extra land in the draw, the kind of redundancy as far as the mana doublers, Gauntlet of Power, Mana Geyser's a really great one. Add red to your mana pool for each tapped land your opponent controls, especially late game. You can play something big, get a whole bunch of mana early game. If everybody's tapping out to keep their deck going, you can kind of go crazy and pick up on everybody else's like Fury and play based off their tap lands. And then the last one, Cage Sun, to finish out the mana ramp section. Next, we're going to utility. Just some kind of responsibility cards here. Tormod's Crypt to take out the person using their graveyard at your table. Elixir of Immortality might change it out for like one of the old Shuffle Eldrazi at some point. Really great one though. Relic of Progenitus, some early draw if you're in trouble, and of course incrementally removing things from graveyards, which is great. And then the big wipe if we need it. Crucible of Worlds, like I mentioned, having lands is really important. There's 1 or 2 that sack in this deck, so that's important as well. And it's just good, works with the Glacial Crevasses. Unfortunately, it is crazy expensive right now. They need to reprint that card. Sculpting Steel, just because I have a lot of enchantments artifacts. It's great to copy a Gauntlet of Might and have 2 of them. And then Gratuitous Violence, deal double damage, so Ben can hit twice as hard with not half, but the same amount of mountains. Moving on, we're going to card draw. Of course, Sensei's Divining Top, really great card, just for fixing and drawing if you're in a pinch. This deck doesn't have a whole lot of answers, but if you're trying to dig at the end of a game to save somebody or save yourself, like, the top's a good way to do it. One of my favorite draw cards, maybe it's not very good, but it works well in a monocolor deck, is Illuminated Folio. 5 costs, so a little expensive. 1 in tap, reveal 2 cards from your hand that share a color and draw. So a little inexpensive on that activation, and then the nice thing is you're probably going to have 2 colored cards in your hand that are all red. So, and usually you can like get around showing off your best card. If you're like sitting on a Banefire or something, you don't always have to show them that card. So you can kind of hint that you don't have much. You're not giving away a whole lot of information. One that should be in any deck, Mind's Eye, really great card draw. In red, we're going to deal with 1 like wheel effect and Reforge the Soul. It's great, especially if you're out of stuff, and it can mess up the people that just sit on their hands by making them, pitch it. And then last, Staff of Nin, kind of a better version of the Folio, a little bit more expensive, but dealing damage is really great too. Let's see, next we are on to removal. Start things off, Vandal Blast. It's really good with the Overload, of course, to take out everybody else's artifacts. Chaos Warp is one of the best like permanent removals that we've got in red. Fortunately, it comes with a downside just because red's kind of chaotic, but it's fun that way too. Target player removes a permanent, shuffles it into their library, and then if it's a permanent, when they reveal one, they can put it into play. So it can sometimes backfire, but it's good for the Avacyn's or Darksteel Forges that your opponents may have, just to get it off the field. Chain Reaction for some board wipe. Flame Fusillade is one of my favorite cards. 4-cost sorcery, until end of turn, permanents you control gain tap, deal a damage to creature or player. This is a really good way to deal with the planeswalkers that are getting pesky, or a creature that you may not be able to like get your opponent to swing with, so you can kill it with Ben. Or just a finisher. If somebody's at low life, you can just turn turn things into a Koth emblem for your lands or your permanents. Just deal some damage by tapping them. Really good. Into the Core for some Artifact Exile, and you get 2 of them, which is pretty good. Lord of Shatterskull Pass, the level up Minotaur from Rise of Eldrazi. Maybe not the best. Is it Avarice Dragon, the one from Origins?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Probably should be this guy. I haven't updated it in a bit, but one of my favorites, again, kind of a goofy chaos card, is Capricious Efreet. He's 2 red and 4. At the beginning of your upkeep, choose target non-land permanent you control and up to 2 target non-land permanents you don't control, and destroy 1 at random. It's not bad, especially dealing with something, again, that somebody's really bugging the board with, like a Seedborn Muse, or just something like, I don't know. It's good. It's goofy and fun. So, and then lastly, Blasphemous Act, super good, deal 13 for usually a red to the whole board. So, and for you, you're maybe blowing up your commander and then just playing him again. So, not so bad. Next, we're going into the tutor section. Just 2 cards here. Good old gamble. Fun one, especially for a single red. Just turn 1, get something you hope that sticks around in your hand, and go from there. It's a great card, especially in a color combo that doesn't have much search. And then next we have Godo. He's really good because when he comes into play, you can search your library for an equipment. There's the Basilisk Collar, which I'll go for if you need boots and you like just to keep yourself safe. You've got that. The Thornbite Staff is one of my favorites. Godo is really awesome. Just bringing out one of those pieces to get Ben online is super, super important. The next segment we're going into is kind of what I kind of called like the tricks. Reverberate, there's a lot of copy spells for your finishers or to kind of piggyback on a really great like ramp spell or search spell. Maybe even a destruction spell if there's 2 threats on the board and one, player A is going to try to take out player B's powerhouse. You can take out on both. So Reverberate's one. Good old Torpor Orb, another responsibility card. There's some enter the battlefield effects in this deck, which can shut me down with the Torpor Orb, but usually it's there to stop Crater of Behemoths and other awful, horrible things. So one everybody should consider at least. Reiterate, probably the best copy spell with the buyback. Wild Ricochet, another really great one. Pyromancer's Goggles are in here. Just adding adding a red to spend on another spell to copy it. Really good for our Comet Storms, Banefires, Mana Geyser, that sort of thing. And oh my gosh, one of my favorite cards. If you play red, you should run this card, is Radiate. It is 2 red and 3, instant, choose target instant or sorcery that targets only a single permanent or player. Each other permanent or player the spell could target, or for each one, put a copy put a copy on the stack. Boy, oh boy. Each copy targets a different one of those permanents and players. This is the I'm way behind card. Somebody's got an Avacyn. Somebody else is going to path that Avacyn. All of a sudden, everybody's getting everything pathed, and there's no more trouble. It's a really great card, especially kind of with the trickery theme. This deck is all about kind of jumping out of nowhere and just beating people down. And Radiate is perfect. Oh god, I love that card. Next, and kind of a goofy one, this is in here for Seth in his old Rafiq deck. Volshock Battlemaster. Haste when he enters, attach all equipment in play to him. So, as a 2/2 for 5, he's pretty good when you just grab all the swords and boots and make people spend their next turn re-equipping and maybe get one really big shot in on somebody. He's super cool. And then Word of Seizing, another great card if you run red. A little bit more fair. I used to run, Insurrection, but Word of Seizing is really good, of course, with the split second, and I think a little bit more fair. It's not as cool to work on everybody's stuff and take everything, but it's good to unhinge a Planeswalker. I've taken Tameo a number of times. You get a Venser that's at an ultimate. Man, so good. Next, we're going into threats. So kind of some finishers. As I mentioned, this deck wins about 25% of the time, but these are the ones that usually take us to victory. Of course, Banefire, uncounterable, deal damage if X is more than 5. Really good card. Goblin Welter is really good. He's kind of a utility dude as well, but when you might crack your Armillary Sphere on turn 3 and then have a discarded Darksteel Forge in your graveyard, that's a really good trade. He's an awesome card for red. Of course, Comet Storm, kind of the Banefire for everybody. Not uncounterable, but there's some ways around that. But really good one there. Koth of the Hammer, he's won me a bunch of games, especially if you can keep him safe. Dealing damage with your mountains is super great, and untapping early game too. And some people don't really know he's a huge threat. He's definitely one of the best red planeswalkers out there. Probably my favorite card in the deck is Obsidian Fireheart. It is a triple red and 1 elemental 4/4. For 2 and 1, you can put a blaze counter on target land without a blaze counter on it. As long as that land has a blaze counter on it, it has, at the beginning of your upkeep, your opponent's lands, deal 1 damage to them for each burn. So, and it says in parentheses, the land continues to burn after Obsidian Fireheart has left the battlefield. So, if you have a bunch of mana, which you likely will because you're keeping your mana untapped through your turn and your opponent's turns, when it's about to become your turn, you pay groups of 3 and start setting things on fire. And you start out with the dual lands, the Gaia's Cradles, the Urborgs, all the fun stuff that they don't want them dealing damage to themselves with, but that guy can kill an entire table in a few rounds if you're piling them all on one person who's a big threat, spreading things out so that there's less and less like life as you go. Steve's shaking his head. He just wants burn the player on the left, right? Oh god, that card is so cool. And it's great because with all the mana doublers, each of your mountains might tap for 3, and you've just got deal the damage every turn until that player is dead. Malignus, really big finisher. Zealous Conscripts, again, a great way to steal stuff, and maybe, like I think what I do last, a GT.
Yeah.
Take a GT and just oh man, unhinge some stuff, it's great. Combustible Gear Hulk, man, it fits Kaladesh, and it fits this deck because there is some expensive, stupid stuff in here. So either they let you draw it, or they take, I think I hit somebody for like 17 once. Oh man, it's a great choice card, and again, fits with the trickery theme. Hellkite Tyrant, really great one. You're trying to swing through with Trample and Flying, take artifacts and win the game. I still have not ever won with having 20 artifacts or more, but I'll keep them in until I do. Molten Primordial from Gatecrash. Just taking control of one thing from each player. And then similar to the Obsidian Fireheart, we have Rhinescale Dragon. He is a 7, so for 5 and 2 red, snow creature dragon. Flying can pay 2 and a snow mana, tap target creature and put an ice counter on it. Creatures with ice counters on them do not untap during their controller's upkeeps. So,
Ice them.
Yeah, you ice them, and especially if your mountains are tapping for 3, you can just throw him out there and shut down the whole board. He's pretty mean. I haven't had a whole lot of use of him. He's a pretty new addition, but man, it's in the same vein of the Fireheart. You can just shut people down. So that's it for threats. Lastly, we're going to go into some of the utility lands. First, we'll start with Cavernous Souls. Really great card. Luckily, just had a reprint as well. Mostly I'm naming Goblin, as mentioning before. Sometimes I'd name Dragon with some of the other ones, maybe even Elemental with the Fireheart. Just a really great card if you want things to be uncounterable. Mostly being used for Ben, and it's great because you can use it with one of our next cards. Evolving Wilds here, just to thin your deck a little bit, get the colors you need, hopefully. The next one I'd like to highlight here is Hall of the Bandit Lord. Really great card from Champions of Kamigawa. Comes in tapped, which kind of stinks, but it's got tap, pay 3 life, add a colorless to your pool. If that mana is spent on a creature spell, it gains haste. So really great for Ben if you're trying to stay alive late game. There's another card, Winding Canyons, in the deck, so you can give your creatures flash, then give them uncounterable with Cavern, and then give them haste with Hall of the Bandit Lord. So really great way to kind of flash in your commander and save yourself, luckily. Next we'll go into Homeward Path. Everybody should run a Homeward Path, even if it's not for your stuff. Somebody else might get something disgusting bribe-breed out of their deck, and you want to give it back to somebody, or keep it out of somebody's hands for at least part of the turn, that sort of thing. Really responsible card. And consider including that. It's creeping up there in price though, which is a bad thing. Next, more the Pillow Fort. We've got Maze of Ith, just to untap an attacking creature. One of my favorite cards from Cold Snap, Mouth of Ronim. It's a snow land, so you can get snow mana from it, but you get a colorless if you like. It's got the ability here, pay 4 and a snow, tap it, sacrifice it. It deals 4 damage to target creature. Really good for the Seedboard Muses sitting behind the lines. Anything you can just bite for 4. Works well with the Crucible of Worlds because you can play it again. Just an awesome, cool, and a unique card. A lot of people overthink snow permanents and snow lands, and definitely a neat one. Mystifying Maze, kind of the little brother to Maze of Ith. Reliquary Tower. Not that I'm usually flooded on cards, but just another include for pretty much any EDH deck. I love Hideaway Lands, at least the good ones. Spine Rock Knoll is a good one. It's pretty easy for somebody to take 7 damage on a turn, and you get something cool out of that, and plus the art is great. Oh, it's so great. Moving on, we've got Scrying Sheets, which is probably my favorite land in the deck. I'll search this with an X map all the time just to hopefully draw some extra cards at the end of people's turns. You got snow mana on the symbol again, but it's not so bad. You can also Thespian stage it, so you might have 2 of them and you're trying to dig for snow mana on other people's turns. Again, since you're trying to keep a lot of your mana untapped to make Ben hit for as much as he can on attacking creatures. So at the end of turns, you can just try to draw some, use your top to set that up. Scrying Sheets is great, especially for snow-covered decks. Strip Mine, just for the problem land here or there. Thespian Stage, as I mentioned earlier, really great card for copying. And then Valakut, your Plain Mountains, that's a threat on its own. And then lastly, we've got kind of the heart of the deck. I forgot to count 25 snow-covered mountains in here. Just a beautiful card. Again, it works well with the extra planar lens and some of the other like snow permanent cards in here, just to kind of keep everybody else from benefiting on that if you can. So that's the deck. Like I said, kind of a pillow fort. Maybe like we talked about, ideal draws. You want to be able to play your commander on turn 4 or sooner if you can. Of course, being double red in his cost, that's a little tricky sometimes. But if you're dealing with, there's a good number of colored lands here, or even like Cavern can help fudge that a little bit. Keepable stuff, usually one part of the protection package, like the Thornbite Staff or the Collar for Basilisk Collar. Something really greedy, usually, like a Goblin Welder into that Darksteel Forge is great. Sometimes one of those sync cards, the Fireheart, is awesome. A Koth, pretty much any Koth hand is like an auto keep. The Mana Geyser early game, if you can get there and just like zoom ahead. And especially one of the any of the Cage Sun, like Gauntlet, extra planar lens. If you can get that going, man, you're in business. So always usually something greedy, like I mentioned, some sort of ramp. A mana doubler is like really, really good. And then some of those tricks are important too. Even just something as simple as like reverberating a rampant growth can really help you out. So give it a try. If you want to see the full deck list, that'll be posted in the description. Check out our other deck techs. Steve Morrison is doing a great job with his 32 series. I think we're 11 decks in.
Yep.
So check those out. Like I mentioned earlier, like, subscribe, comment. If I've got it wrong, if you got a better Ben, show me. Let's duel on a Thursday. Thursday night's EDH down here. So if you can, swing by.